It is the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-show on New Thought Media Network. I'm Bill, that's Carol. And we missed you guys last week. We were not on the broadcast for Memorial Day, but we still did a podcast episode sometime later in the week. But we missed you guys. So it's good to be back.
Good to be back.
You have a good Memorial Day?
I absolutely did. It was wonderful. My husband and my two sons. My daughter's always left out because she's married, so she's got married stuff to do. But my two sons are single, so they just like hanging out with me sometimes. And so we had a really, really fun time. Went to a little village and just visited all the shops and ate junk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
How about you? Do you have a good one?
I did. We had some friends and family over, married stuff. And, some barbecuing and, or I guess grilling. It was not barbecuing. I've been schooled now that barbecuing involves a smoker and slow cooking, whereas grilling is putting stuff directly on top of the grill. So you'd think 60-something years in I would know stuff like that, but...
Well, listen, thanks
always
for cluing me in on that, because I thought the same thing, but it doesn't matter now because I had a yard sale, so my Cadillac fancy grill is gone, in a condo community, you can't grill and burn stuff outside, so my beautiful grill is gone. So now I understand information that I don't need anymore.
You never know when you're going to find yourself on Jeopardy.
Yeah, or someplace else,
Yep.
where we can grill. That's on the burner, right? That's on the out there and sown in the soil, and it's just out there.
You can imagine getting to the afterlife, and you get to the gates, and that's the question: what's the difference between grilling and barbecuing?
Listen, could you explain that to me again? Just
I have no reason to believe that that's going to be the question, but
oh, that'd be good.
Oh, yeah. Reminding me of some jokes. Not going to go there. So, what are we going to talk about today? Because we talked by email a little bit about it, and I appear to be completely unqualified for the topic, which is, or maybe I'm completely qualified and just don't know it. But so, never stops me from talking.
Well, first of all, we are completely qualified to talk about this from our perspective, which is the right perspective. Now,
you've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about this.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just so bold as to say from our perspective, which is right, and I can't speak for you.
You probably can.
Okay, so we were acknowledging that this is Gay Pride Month. Is that right?
Pride Month. We're in June. Yep.
Pride Month. And a lot is going to be going on. And I just thought, as you mentioned, there'd be a nice thing to talk about, because it's a lot of noise going on. And so I just am welcoming this opportunity because perhaps people will listen to what is not noise, like some quiet talk about it. And
yeah, okay. And this was prompted by a note that I got from one of the members of the New Thought Philly community, who's gay and remembers the good old days when the gay community used to be, or seemed to feel like it was a lot more aligned than it is now. So there's factionalizing and infighting that's going on. So we can fold that in if the topic comes up as well.
Yeah. We're going to get it, if we don't get it all in today, it continues. That's really cool with me.
Well, yeah, it's the very beginning of Pride Month, so we can completely mess it up. We've got 3 more tries.
And you know what? I always make this point whenever I'm speaking to a group. Please, if I make a mistake, correct me. If I use the wrong terminology, no malice intended, just correct me and I'll get it right because my heart is all about loving you. And so, if I make a faux pas, whatever.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So just
Well,
what? Put it in the chat or send a text to bethelight.com or something and say, hey, Carol, get this. This is correct. You need to be corrected on that.
yep. And as we say in our New Thought classes, we play a game called Lingo Bingo, because the New Thought teaching has been around for either 100 years or 200 years, depending on when you start counting. And there's a lot of arcane language in there. I refer to it as the inside joke. Somebody wants to manifest a demonstration, so they get a spiritual mind treatment. And somebody who's in this teaching knows what they're talking about, and somebody else is going, what the hell was that? So we play Lingo Bingo in all the classes, and the students are invited to interrupt us and say, call Lingo Bingo, and point out that we just said something that's incomprehensible to mortals. And could you please do it again using language that actually was born sometime, I don't know, this century?
Yeah, just a point. That is so true, right? But by the time I got to Lingo Bingo, I was doing so much research. I felt so happy that I got it, right? I knew the language. And then you came along and told me it's irrelevant. We're going to use some different language. I thought, okay, let's go.
It's not irrelevant. It's just
Outdated.
It's outdated and non-obvious. So one of the things that my friend Jerry Schroyer, who's the president of Anton, says is we want to say what we mean and mean what we say. Mm-hmm. And if we mean that we're going to change the experience of our life by doing a prayer, then we should say that, rather than manifesting a demonstration using spiritual mind treatment, which is the old language for the same thing, but you need a secret decoder ring to figure it out.
I agree. Although I got the ring.
Oh, yeah. And you didn't get at the bottom of a box of Cracker Jack.
No.
You went and studied, and you went on the mythic quest to find their decoder ring and figure all of this stuff out and deprogram yourself from the other things.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way. But go ahead. Let's go.
Let's kick off the podcast, and we will talk about pride, etc.
Mm-hmm.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol Lawrence here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We have a wonderful conversation to kick off what we're celebrating Pride Month. And it's about gay pride. And there was a question that came up about how might trans people use practical prayer when they're being attacked law-wise and physically and having to do with their safety. And also the broader picture about there's a lot of division that's going on inside of the gay community. So that's a perfect question for 2 straight people, so let's have at
it. So one might say, what nerve do you have? You're going to discuss something that you're not even a part of. But I think we can do a little bit because it's a human problem.
Exactly.
It's a problem that everybody experiences, or every group experiences at some point in its history or in its journey. So I can speak from my perspective because I am also from a group, so to speak. And I just see a lot of similarities.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And it's the tendency of groups to other groups that are somehow different than them. This is my tribe, and those are others. Whether it's one band of others, or everybody else is an other in their own various way. And it's the outsiders. And actually, as I was thinking about this, the old sort of tongue-in-cheek technique that I have to guarantee that humanity, all 8 billion of us, could come together in an instant, is space aliens. If we have some creatures, if we have creatures who are capable of doing all the stuff that we're capable of doing, and possibly even a little more, and they have 6 or 8 legs and 3 eyes, then suddenly humanity is all exactly the same, and there's those other guys.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I'm not sure, somebody will have to send us a note sometime this week to tell us where the actual starting point of this is. But I'll start from where I sit, because I'm in a group. And in America, we're just all in bunches of groups, so mine is African American, and African American female is another group. So yep. I'm in a couple. And I think the same thing happens with every group. Let me just start as African Americans as a whole. The assumption is that we're a homogeneous group and that everybody thinks the same and moves the same.
The notion of the black community.
The black community.
Like you're all going to go to the same picnic.
And and it's a nice notion, sort of a dream kind of notion. But believe it or not, there are so many differences within our community or within our culture. And when people approach with a stereotype of how black people think and they are, whatever, you're standing there thinking like, that's not me. Where'd you get that from? But also within the culture itself, and I'm assuming in every culture, they're the same dynamics that are present in the whole of all cultures, combined. And I don't know if that's unexpected. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure if it's unexpected. For example, how about this? I served in 3 mainline denominations. The assumption is that the denominations are different. And there are some differences, but they're subtle.
Oh, yeah. Well, you get into the Methodist Church and they think that the Baptists are different.
Yeah, but when you get there are 3 or 4 things that anchor you to Christianity. After that, it's all a go. Right? So.
Yeah, there's differences in the nuance and the techniques.
Yeah, so when we come together in each denomination, I experienced this. And there's one denomination that I don't talk about because it wasn't mainline, so we'll just leave it at that. But but it's still the same, there becomes a hierarchy and a ruling class or, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a group dynamic. And I think it probably exists in every single group, no matter what that group is. So while we come together because of our difference, and we've been marginalized for whatever reason, so we all find ourselves over in the margin, and we, kind of support each other. Now that we're supported, now there's some things we got to address on the inside. And there's that 3-letter word that ego thing, it just shows itself in so many different ways. So I have no doubt that it is in every group.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely true. And by the way, the same thing happens in New Thought. Because New Thought is this grand, wonderful idea, and we can all trace our lineage back to the stuff that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote down and didn't explain, and Phineas Quimby experimented with and proved works, which is basically the practical prayer technique. And Thomas Troward and Emma Curtis Hopkins put some feet on it, so we could actually use it in the world. And then people took this great teaching and they started heading in slightly different directions. So the Unity Church of Christianity or now it's just unity, is one of them. And then there's what Ernest Holmes did, which is religious science, which was Religious Science International and the United Church of Religious Science. There's one that's divided into two, which is now combined back into one, called the Centers for Spiritual Living. And then there was divine science, and there are other little ways that this is coming about, and there's some offshoots of unity and some offshoots of divine science, and all the rest of these. Like the Agape International Spiritual Center is an offshoot of religious science. So we can continue to divide and unfold ourselves in different ways. And somebody who's sitting in a religious science church can look at somebody who's in unity or divine science and say those are completely different. And they're not. They're the same teaching with a slightly different flavor. It's like going into the Baskin-Robbins and fighting about whether it's rum raisin or chocolate chip. It's like, it's ice cream. You're in an ice cream store. Let's celebrate the ice cream because, we're not in a shoe store and we're not in a steakhouse.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. I don't know. I can't remember what day you sent the memo, but all these ideas just started firing off in my head. And I thought, okay, now be careful the way you say this, but say it. All
Okay.
right?
And here's
So,
Carol saying it.
This is me saying it, and let me assure you that if I mess this up, I'll fix it.
Okay, Carol, take one in that case.
Okay. So I thought, Pride Month. Why do we have this? Everybody's okay. Everybody isn't okay with you, right? So you have Pride Month. And I said, it's the same thing as Black History Month. Is it African American? Whatever, February.
Black History Month is February.
Yeah.
Yep.
And many of us are offended by that because, what happens is when you have difference, you have to be special in some way to be recognized and say, I want to be appreciated and so forth, rightfully so. But, for me, it goes back to this. What the heck are we missing here? That we have to actually step out and demand to be recognized and respected and so forth. It's basic human, it's basically the lack of understanding or the failure to understand that we are all unique expressions of God and that we're made in the image of God. If you could just get that, just get that in your head or in our hearts, there would not be such a need to separate ourselves and say, hey, look at me, I'm worthwhile, I deserve respect, I deserve because then we could, as a human race, move to the next level of Christ consciousness or the next level of spirituality, whatever way you want to define it. Now, I hope that came out right, but before somebody tells me that that's a Disneyland dream, I get it.
I understand. And there's actually, you inadvertently slipped in that little four-letter word that makes what you were talking about so much more challenging in the real world than it is in the world of sensibility, where we can just assess things and say this is obvious. And the four-letter word is just. Can't we just all get along? It implies that getting along is going to be easy. Can't we just acknowledge the intrinsic value of every human being? Well, that's a heavy lift for some people who have spent a lifetime feeling better about themselves because they're able to marginalize someone else. And I know exactly what you're saying. Why do we have to have Gay Pride Month? Okay, does that mean that the gay community can't be proud the other 11 months of the year? We for 11 months, every time except February, we don't have to talk about Black history, and then we can ignore it. And the same thing happens, and I got into huge trouble about this at the very beginning of Black Lives Matter. When my observation was, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And I realized that I was approaching it from exactly the wrong direction. Because I can say that all lives matter, and people look at me, middle-aged white guy, and say, what do you know about anything? And how can you say that? And how can you say you're trying to take away the importance of what we're trying to say, that Black Lives Matter? Because they do. And what I realized is that until all lives matter, until Black Lives Matter, no lives matter. Until we can have gay pride 365 days a year, we need to focus on the fact that that's actually a thing. We need to be able to identify and bring that out so we can celebrate it and say, this is okay. This is a perfectly acceptable way of life, and it can be celebrated and enjoyed, and there can be parties about it, and we happen to do it one month a year so we can really bring our attention to it, and then we can take a breath and then do it again next year. And the hope is that eventually we'll get to the point where it's not that important to have to do it, because it's part of the way that we are.
I hope we get there, because with candidates for public office, that's put up as something, and I'm thinking, why do we need to know this? You're fine. It's like, I don't really care. I just want to know, what do you bring to the table? You going to do this job better than the last guy did it, or the last sister did it? I don't really care. It's just, and that's me, because when people are talking and they've been hurt, they don't know who they're talking to. So I guess it's important to make a statement. But I just want the world to know that some of us are cool. We just want to be. There's a word, just. I don't know how to say it without that. I understand. I honestly understand. But I want so desperately for us to get to a place where it's not part of our resume, part of the human resume.
Yeah.
We're just there with each other.
And to be able to use just and have that be irrelevant means that it's not unjust, which in a lot of cases it is now. Let's take a break and continue talking about Pride Month.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the new thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We are talking about Pride Month, and the question that we got from somebody who listens to the podcast is, how might trans people use practical prayer when they're being attacked law-wise and physically, having to do with safety? And then broadened out into the divisions within the, quote, gay community, as though there is one community which is, where all the gay people hang out, which is not the case. And we're talking about how there's the tendency for us to divide and then subdivide our groups together. And at this point, I've been getting back to the primary question about trans people and the threat that they're under. Let's focus in a little bit on that, because that is the group that has become very easy for some politicians to want to attack.
Yeah. Well, when I was a lifetime ago, when I was in modeling school, and the agency was located in Center City, Philadelphia, and the classes were at night. And I was a young teenager at the time, maybe 15, 16, whatever. And I'd meet my mom or whoever was picking me up at a particular restaurant, and they would say, don't go in, just, we'll meet you there. Well, tell a kid don't go in, you're going in, right? So I'm going with some of my friends, and there were the most beautiful women in there. And I would stand there, I'm just in awe because they were perfect. And they would just smile at me, and I'm thinking, but we're the ones that go to modeling school. We need to bring these women into where we are so that they can tell us what the deal is. And, I just walk up to them because I'd talk to anybody. And I just, your makeup is perfect, blah, blah, blah. And one woman came to me and said, you don't know who we are, do you? And, they were just feeling sorry for this kid. And I'm like, no, like you just, all right,
No,
well.
I don't. Who are you?
And then I thought, well, maybe I just stumbled into where like stars were, people that were stars of some kind. And she said, we're trans. And is that a place? So I brought that up to say that some of us are we don't know. We don't know, and I am mad at anybody. And she turned to her other friends and said, she's okay, which told me that, are there people that aren't okay with being in here? Like, I just stumbled into a place that's not okay. What?
Right.
And
What's going
right?
on?
You're selling the same food. This is a nice restaurant, so I became a kind of accepted little thing that comes by from time to time. And they knew my name and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm feeling really special in this special community. And nobody said anything mean or tried to do anything mean. So I'm thinking, this is all right now. Several decades later, I'm wondering, what the heck is wrong with people? These people are people. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, I get my makeup tips from them. And then and people tell me that I'm cute, my makeup looks good. Hey, can I tell you where I found out how to do it? But and I'm saying that affectionately, jokingly. I just don't get it. I don't get why we're bothering people. They're not bothering anybody. They're just doing what they do.
Yep. Wonderful phrase that I absolutely am a huge fan of, which is love is love. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if there is a relationship and a connection between two consenting adults, it is none of my business who either of them claims to be or what agenda they happen to have. If they say this is my person and the other one says this is my person, have at it. There are some things that I prefer not to think about, just for myself personally. But that's just me. That's just me. But I celebrate the love unfolding and the opportunity for that soul connection to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me say this: I have taken many, many hits in the Christian community because of the position that I have always had all my whole life. I just had it. I don't know why I had it that way. It's very much opposite of the community that I grew up in, and certainly not a welcomed position to have as a Christian minister. Now, things are changing. They're changing, but they're not changing enthusiastically, and they're a little bit slow. But I have always been pushed to the margin because I think weird, and once they slap the label of a liberal on you, you're pretty much done where it comes to comes to elevation. But you know what? I don't care. I never did, because I always figured God was going to elevate me above y'all anyhow. If you love God, if whatever that means to you, if you espouse any of the attributes that God is. And most people only know that. If they don't know anything, they say, well, God's supposed to be love. Or work with that, okay? Let's start with that. And if you hang on to that one, there's no way you can be as ugly, and I'm saying it, as ugly and judgmental as many are. And I think I'm going to make a reel about that. Uh, because here, church is declining and we don't know why. And da, da, da. It's because the love and attribute of grace and, all that, I'm trying not to mix up the words too much. It's just not there. Allowing God to just be God's self through us as it relates to other people without putting judgments on it and all that kind of stuff. You know what? Listen, we're going to break in a minute, but I got to say this.
Okay.
So, so I'm talking to my sons, and they're very much the same way. And you hear people say, well, God doesn't like this, and God said this. How you know?
Yeah, who's putting words in God's mouth?
I mean, how dare you? And I'd be in the church, and listen, I had a mic every Sunday, even between churches, I had a mic. And when church was over, I was at a mic somewhere else. And I didn't mind saying that this homophobic stuff y'all doing ain't nothing but the flavor of the month. Because as soon as another quote sin comes up that is more politically charged and whatever else, you'll forget that and hang on to this, just like you did. You shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't do something. You know what I mean? So this is not relate. I'm trying not to say this is not God. This, because I'm getting the language mixed up here. This is not an expression of God.
Right.
How about that? That's what I mean.
Well,
it's not an expression of God.
It's fun to watch you get frothy. you get charged up.
I'm trying to find the right words. Right?
And I hear exactly what you're saying. And there's the story about during his ministry, Jesus took a whole bunch of criticism for hanging around with the lepers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's the lepers, and he goes and hangs around with them. Okay, and Jesus said, "No, this is good. We love everybody." Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine that lepers were okay, but trans people are not. Like, what's up with that? And for somebody who's saying that, oh, this is against Jesus, is like, yeah, I don't think you're identifying the guy who you're claiming there, because that's not what he was about. Just for myself, and before we take a break, a ridiculously powerful and very dangerous tactic to try, and I don't know if anybody's going to do it, because there are now states where there are bathroom laws, where everybody has to use the bathroom of their gender as assigned at birth. Well, I can imagine an incredibly large group of trans and and drag people go in and using the wrong bathroom and see if they can get some attention. Again, very dangerous, but boy, is that going to get some attention. And have people say, maybe it's okay if we could just not have to pay attention to this and you can use the other bathroom.
You know what I wondered? What the heck are y'all looking at in the bathroom anyhow? I mean, what are you doing? Just go take care of your business and get out. I don't care what the next person is doing. I never sent my children into the bathroom by themselves ever anyway, before this was ever an issue. And by the way, my kids are 35, 40, and 37, 38, something like that. So, this I'm talking about a long time ago, before this was ever an issue. They never went in the bathroom by themselves. So what's the big deal now? You're not sending your kids in the bathroom by themselves. You go in, take care of your stuff, and leave. Mind your business.
Mind your business.
Mind your business.
Okay.
And go on, because you done messed up your day.
I got you frothy again. This is great.
I'm just all about treating everybody right. Stop all this nonsense y'all doing.
Yeah. Let's do another break, and then we're going to have a practical prayer on how that safety can come about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Are you ready to get results? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. Are you ready to get results? RUR2GR. That's actually the abbreviation for the steps in a practical prayer. Recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release. with a couple of extra steps in there in case some doubt creeps in along the way. RUR2GR. This class is about the prayer technique that's common to all of the spiritual practices and religions in the most effective prayers that they have. And by effective, I mean that the prayer works. It actually creates a change in the experience of the person doing the prayer. It gets a result. We're going to begin with theory, and then we're going to take it into practice. By the end of the class, you will have your very own practical prayer that will help create transformation in your life.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol here with Reverend Dr. Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. I'm still laughing at me getting frothed up.
It's adorable. I love when that happens. And the prompt that we've been dealing with for the episode is about Pride Month. And the question is, how might trans people use practical prayer when they're being attacked law-wise and physically and having to do with their safety? So that's what the prayer is about for the program, and that's what we're going to close with today, is a prayer on how we can have safety come about, and physical safety, legal safety, to be in that place of safety. And this is a perfect example, because when we are experiencing injustice, when we're experiencing that fear of being othered, of being marginalized, of being attacked, being undermined, and it's everything from being pushed out of society to being pushed into jail, to have our lifestyle and our way of being challenged and undermined, and that's dangerous. And then what do you do, and how do you deal with it, and all of those threats that are coming, and you never know what direction it's coming from next. And that is all very real. It is very real to have those experiences, to have those concerns, to have those fears. And the prayer is about turning our attention and our awareness to something bigger. So we know what those challenges and what those situations are. We know that what we want to have is safety and well-being and equality and fairness. And in situations where we don't know how that's going to happen, we can leave the how aside just for now and turn our attention to that infinite creative power, that one, God, divine spirit, nature, the creator, the Big Bang, that source from which everything flows. There is one power and presence that shares itself as everything, everyone, everywhere. It is infinite energy. It is limitless love. It is all intelligence. It is all knowing. That one shares and expresses and reveals itself in billions of different ways, an infinite variety of ways. Everything that exists is that one infinite energy vibrating in its own particular way. Everything is that divine presence. And because that's true, I know that's true of me and of each one who is listening to this prayer, and of everyone who is in a marginalized community, experiencing that challenge, that difficulty, that otherness that might have happened up until now. And to know that that is not prescriptive. Principle is not bound by precedent. What has happened in the past does not need to happen in the future. There is transformation possible and available in this moment and in every moment. So we set the intention for that goodness, knowing that each one within the sound of my voice, everyone within these communities, everyone everywhere is that divine love expressed in its own way. So I call upon safety. I call upon harmony. I call upon balance. I call about peace of mind and comfort and ease and effortlessness and joy and the experience of love and health and comfort and vitality for everyone. Knowing that when somebody is successful and happy and joyous and loved and loving and prosperous and joyous, it takes nothing away from anybody else. It is an infinite universe, and more love, good and more good, prosperity and more prosperity, health and harmony, and more and more and more is always available. So that's what I call upon for everyone in their own way, to experience that love, that goodness, that harmony, to be that bright light of love that he or she or they are. And to know that love is at hand. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the ways that this is showing up. I'm grateful to be able to let go of the how and open to the wow, to know that this good is happening, and it's happening more quickly and more powerfully and more richly and more harmoniously than anybody could have imagined. When we turn it over to the infinite, fabulous is possible. Instantaneous is possible. Transformation is possible. And so I claim it. And with this intention for the good unfolding for each one involved, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law, the one that always says yes. And I know, without any question whatsoever, that that law is now responding. There is nothing in the way of this good. It is coming about now. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
That is a wrap for this episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast on New Thought Media Network. Got some great comments, especially from Fiona, who pointed out that all lives matter until politics entangle themselves. Fiona, how well said.
Yeah. I also was looking at her comment about Western Europe. And I don't know the geography there, but I do know that my husband and I almost watch exclusively BritBox, and almost exclusively. And one of the things I noticed is the relationship between people of color, of all colors, and I've looked a couple of times. It doesn't seem to matter over there. Now, there are some episodes where, some little comments are made, and I say, maybe it does, but it's overwhelming. The message that comes out is that it's very different than it is in this country. And for political stuff, entanglements, to use specific issues that relate to humanity is just horrible. So it's, I don't want to go down that road again, but it really makes it less interesting to be involved in.
There were some things that were done in the colonies to keep the wealthy landowners in charge, and that's continues to play itself out. But yeah, that's either a completely different episode or not for the Practical Prayer Podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that we can continue this next time, because there's so much more to it than what we were able to talk about.
Okay.
And
well, I'm all right with that.
That's
and as I mentioned, this is the first episode of Pride Month, and we don't have to limit it to a month. We can do 12 months of Pride Month. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, as long as it is, to me, helpful to somebody, and I really think that my position is helpful, because there's so many dissenting voices and so much hate out there, and I'm trying to say, listen, we don't all feel that way. This is not how, and maybe those who are on the fence or have an ear, a moment, they can hear that all of this opposition and rejection and, marginalizing and all that is not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not good.
Yep. Well, there's the notion of bringing love to the fight. And, when we're thinking about getting ourselves all frothied up and ready for a fight, bringing love to that seems counterintuitive, but there's only love. And when we're getting into a fight, we're forgetting that. We're looking at the differences and the otherness rather than embracing the possibilities. And yeah, there's some things that I'm willing to fight for, but I would much rather have the other people realize that they don't want to fight.
It's and to me, it's and everything goes to intellect and thinking and everything. I don't know. That's just where I'm coming from. But I'm thinking, like, what are you doing? Did you think this morning when this idea first came to your mind about the position you were going to spout out? You had a lot of time between the time that you thought it and the time you said it, right? Get dressed, leave the house, da, 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 da. Yeah, somewhere along the way, did it ever occur to you that this is not a good idea? Like this, like this could come back on me somehow. And those are the things that I like to stop people and say, if you give this a second thought, it might not seem like such a good idea to you.
All right, well, that gives me something to think about. We can talk about next time, which is, can we set the intention for other people to have doubt, to second guess themselves?
You got this. It's on tape, so I'm trying to write it down.
You're going to write it down. So, and I haven't thought about that. So, we generally can't pray for somebody to have something or do something against their will, but there may be some space just to introduce some doubt.
Well, the prayer part, that's you. Like, you understand how all that works. I understand it, but not the way you do. I'll be honest with you. I do, and I have learned it, and I believe in it, but for you, it's second nature. For me, I'm saying half this stuff wouldn't be a problem if you think about it.
Oh, so yeah, getting people to think about it is actually the challenge.
It's the challenge, but I guess that's what I bring to the table. And listen, I did a sermon one time, and this had to be this was early on, so about 30 years ago, and I just walked up to the mic and I said, "Can I please speak to your mind today? And could you just give your hearts a rest and your emotions a rest, and let me speak to your mind?" And the reception was overwhelming, like in a positive direction, to the point that I had to think, what did I just say? It was just, and it occurred to me that people don't think. They just don't give it a second thought, like, how is this going to affect me? How could it come back to bite me? How am I making the other person feel what I want to feel that way? Just so many ways that you can approach this that has got to make you think on the drive home, maybe I need to rethink this.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. I think of 35 things to say there, but we're going to save it for next time.
Okay.
And thank you all for listening to us working through this stuff on New Thought Media Network. See you next Monday.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.